that time again. It's Baggy Hi-Fi time. Greetings cats and kittens, and welcome to another episode of Baggy Hi-Fi, a channel devoted to record collecting and the vinyl community here in the UK. It's been a lovely spring day here today. The leaves are coming out on the trees, the flowers are flowering, and people's spirits seem to be lifting a bit, despite the terrible news which keeps on coming through every day about the deaths from COVID-19. Now, this episode, I thought I would devote just to a couple of records, well, a couple of releases. One is a CD box set and the other is a double album vinyl, which follow a particular theme or strain in British music, and that is the English Baroque sound, or the British Baroque sound. A couple of compilations which have come out recently, one in 2018 and one I think maybe earlier this year. I've tried to document this theme in British pop music at the end of the 60s and going into the early 70s. So the records I'm going to talk about, one is another compilation by Bob Stanley and Pete Wiggs of Saint Etienne, and this one is Tea and Symphony, the English Baroque Sound, 1968-1974. And the other release on this theme is a box set from Grapefruit Records, 3 CDs, and this one's entitled Come Join My Orchestra. This is the one that came out in 2018, and there's the nice book. Grapefruit Records have been putting out some very nice compilations along these lines, some psychedelic compilations covering a particular year, 67, 68, 69, and I have those, but they are all released on CD. But the benefit of them being on CD is there's lots and lots of tracks, you know, about 26, 27 tracks on each CD, so it covers a lot of ground. I'd like to mention first a new channel on the vinyl community, who's already made quite a few videos, and I mention him not only because it's a very good channel, but also because he's been talking about some of the compilations that Bob Stanley and Pete Wiggs have been putting together via Ace Records, of which this Tea and Symphony compilation is one. And so that's Dale over at Gatefold 33, so I do recommend you go over there, and I may put, if I remember, put a link down below to Gatefold 33. So what is the English Baroque sound? Well, it just seems to be that music is being divided into more and more micro genres, but nevertheless I do think Bob Stanley and Pete Wiggs have picked up on something here which other people have sensed as well towards the end of the 60s. Probably can be linked back to Paul McCartney saying that pop music was the classical music of the 20th century. And do remember that the orchestrated music that some of the Beatles were in some of the Beatles output, you know, Eleanor Rigby for one. And I'll just read a couple of the liner notes from this compilation, because it does describe the kind of setting for the what they call the English Baroque sound, what Bob Stanley and Pete Wiggs call that sound. So when psychedelia had run its course in Britain, the predominant trend was to get hairier, heavier and more long-winded. Some reverted to the pure blues boom of the mid-60s, with Fleetwood Mac leading the way. Some toughened up, forging the first wave of heavy metal. Some loosened up, bringing jazz and folk into the equation and creating what would become known as progressive rock. Others found solace in the rural sloth of the band. Many musicians, however, were still hung up on the trappings of psychedelia's homegrown strain, having found a musical home in its mournful evocations of Victoriana, its village green gentility, its nods to the pleasures of suburbia, and its church bells softly chiming. They wanted to get softer rather than harder, and were not about to chuggle. So the music on here is sort of melancholic, light in sound, orchestrated in some tunes on here. So how do I rate this? Well, you know, it's a kind of music I like. I'm very much like a lot of people, very interested in music of the late 60s and early 70s in all its different strains. So yeah, don't expect this to be heavy music in any way. It's not prog either. It's something else. It's something quite poppy. So were Bob Stanley and Pete Wiggs the first to think about this kind of thing, this kind of style? Well, no, because there have been some compilations prior to this. For example, the Fading Yellow series, which came out on CD, charted a lot of this sort of poppy, perhaps a little bit twee at times, orchestrated soft pop of the period. And those Fading Yellow compilations, I think most of them are released on CD, are very, very expensive now. So this is something that I think you should leap on if you think you're even remotely interested. Well, this album seems to flow well. It's a mixture of fairly well-known artists and some very obscure ones. The well-known ones include the Honey Bus, I Can't Let Maggie Go, which was a tune used in an advert for Nimble Bread in the late 60s, so very well known to people who were alive around about that time. Mike Batt is on here. He became well known, of course, for composing music for the Wombles in the later 70s. Also, there's no Zombies on here, but Colin Blunston is on here, the singer from the Zombies, with a lovely solo single that he had called Say You Don't Mind. But the obscurities are very interesting. So I think this is an album that I'll probably enjoy more in the autumn, because it is so sort of wistful and a little bit twee at times, and be a nice album to listen to as the leaves are falling and you're drinking a cup of tea in your nice warm house. Clifford T. Ward is an artist who is on the English Baroque Sound compilation, and I've been buying a few Clifford T. Ward albums recently. This is one of his. He was an ex-English teacher who wasn't afraid to have literary lyrics. Now this is very soft-centered music, but yeah, he had a real gift for words and a gift for great tunes as well. And on this on that English Baroque Sound compilation, there's a track, very, very catchy song from his first album on there called Coat Hanger. So moving on to where I'll put it, the Come Join My Orchestra compilation. In a way, I think this one's stronger, even though it's on CD, because there's some real, the Honey Bus are again on here, and also the Zombies are on here with a track from Odyssey and Oracle, which has to be mentioned really in connection with the British Baroque sound. But there are some real obscurities on here, and this one has a really nice flow as well. So 3 CDs, I'd recommend this one as well. Now, if you're wanting to delve a little bit further, which is the kind of thing I would like to do in this sound, Odyssey and Oracle is a great album to start with for the Baroque sound. Heavily arranged, beautiful melodies, lovely harmonies. You should have this one in your collection anyway. The Bee Gees' first album. I guess some people would class this as pop psych, but I do think it fits into the Baroque tag as well. On here, yeah, Craze Finton Kirk, Royal Academy of Arts. That's a Baroque tune if I ever heard one. I love those. The first 3 or 4 Bee Gees albums, miles away from Saturday Night Fever. This is very great stuff, and they were an English band as well. They were born in Manchester. And finally, before I sign off, Barclay James Harvest. I believe that the jury is a little bit out on Barclay James Harvest in the vinyl community. This is probably their most Baroque album. I think this would be from about 1971. It is fully orchestrated and very, very wistful autumnal music on here, including the track Mockingbird, Vanessa Simmons, Galadriel, and She Said. I like Barclay James Harvest. I am not ashamed to say so. So there you are. There's a quick run through of the British or the English Baroque sound. Looking forward to future compilations that Bob Stanley and Pete Wiggs are putting together. This is one that they put together. They seem to really go for mood, really, rather than musical style in some ways. And this album does have some prog artists on. This is English Weather. I only have this on CD at the moment, but this is a nice one. It includes John Cale, Camel, Matching Mole, The Orange Bicycle and Caravan. And I think there's going to be a companion to this coming out, a double album again on Ace Records called Occasional Rain, and that will be another melancholic autumn album. So I think I'm going to pre-order that. So do tune into Dale at Gatefold 33. I'm just going to sign off now, and thanks for the subscriptions. Thank you for your comments. It's great to be part of this community. Bye for now.